Hey guys! Tonight we journey into a world both quieter and louder than our own. A world where, overnight, the babble of thousands of human languages simply ceases. We're going to explore what happens when humanity awakens to find it speaks only one. You're there, on the very first day, feeling the phantom itch of a word on the tip of your tongue that no longer exists. You'll navigate the eerie calm of perfect, effortless understanding with every single person you meet, and you'll grapple with the silent, creeping cost of that unity. And let's be honest, given how much of our personality is tied up in the specific cadence and slang of our native speech, you probably won't survive this with your sense of self completely intact. Before we begin, if you'd like to join me on more journeys like this one, consider hitting like and subscribe. It helps our community find more fellow travelers with the same curiosity. Go ahead and let us know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's always a quiet thrill to see how far these stories travel. Now find a comfortable position, take a deep breath in, and a slow breath out. Let's allow the noise of the outside world to fade away as we begin our adventure of the mind. The first thing you notice is the quiet. Not silence, exactly. The hum of the refrigerator is still there, the distant rumble of traffic, the gentle sigh of the air conditioner. But the other sounds, the human sounds that normally color the edges of your morning, are wrong. You lie in bed, suspended in that soft, hazy state between sleep and awareness, and you strain your ears. There's no morning news anchor chattering from the clock radio on your bedside table. You'd left it on last night, a low murmur of current events to lull you to sleep. Now it emits only a faint, electronic hiss. Strange. Maybe a power surge in the night reset it. You swing your legs out of bed, the familiar texture of the rug under your feet a small anchor in a sea of growing strangeness. As you pad into the kitchen, you glance out the window. Your neighbor, a friendly man who usually shouts greetings in a language you only partially understand, is talking to the delivery driver. You can't hear them clearly through the glass, but their mouths are moving. The odd thing is, their gestures seem amplified, more expressive. The driver laughs, a wide, open-mouthed gesture, and your neighbor claps him on the shoulder. It feels like watching a silent film, even though you know there must be sound. You switch on the small kitchen television, flicking to the 24-hour news channel. The anchor is on screen, her expression serious. And you understand her perfectly. Every single word flows into your mind with the effortless clarity of your own mother tongue. But it isn't. The sounds she is making, the shapes her mouth forms, are utterly alien. The rhythm is unfamiliar, the cadence strange. It's as if you've woken up with a new piece of software installed in your brain, a universal translator, running so smoothly that it's completely transparent. You don't feel like you're hearing a translation. You feel like this. This is language, the only one. A chill, colder than the morning air, prickles your skin. You snatch your phone from the counter. The news headlines, the social media feeds, the messages from your friends, all written in a script that is both familiar and foreign. The letters might even look the same, the classic shapes of the Latin alphabet you know, but the combinations, the words they form, are not from your language, or English, or Spanish, or any of the handful you could vaguely recognize. And yet, you read them all, effortlessly. A message from your friend reads, "The strangest thing is happening. Turn on the news." You understood it before you even consciously registered the act of reading. You stumble back to the window, sliding it open. The sounds of the street rush in, and the true, dizzying scale of the event hits you. The shouts of street vendors, the chatter of people on their way to work, the snippets of conversation from passing cars. It's all in the same single language. The one from the television, the one on your phone, the one that is now, apparently, the only one there is. It's a mainstream fact we often take for granted that our world is home to over 7,000 distinct languages, a staggering tapestry of human expression. The thought of that number, of all those unique ways of seeing and describing the world, vanishing in a single night is incomprehensible. It's like waking up to find that all the colors except for blue have been erased from existence. You feel a wave of vertigo. You try to think of a word from your old language. It's a simple word. Hello, goodbye, your own name. The concept is there in your mind, clear as day, but the specific, familiar sound is gone, replaced by a new, default term that everyone now uses. It's like trying to remember the melody of a song you've heard 1,000 times, only to find the notes have been rearranged into a new, inescapable tune. Your mind, your very consciousness, has been overwritten. This new language, you notice, feels incredibly efficient, almost sterile. It has a logical consistency to it, a seeming lack of ambiguity that is both impressive and unsettling. Scientists still argue whether the language we speak shapes our reality or merely reflects it. This debate, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, feels quaint now. You are living its most extreme conclusion. How will you think? How will you dream? When the tools you use to build your thoughts are suddenly replaced, does the architect remain the same? You wonder if this is some bizarre global prank, a coordinated broadcast hijack of epic proportions. But your own mind is part of the system. You can't even think a protest in your old tongue. A fringe theory you once read about comes to mind, the idea of a primordial, proto-human language from which all others descended. Another was the concept of constructed languages, like the century-old Esperanto, designed with the noble goal of fostering global unity by giving the world a common second language. This feels different. This wasn't an addition, it was a replacement, a total system wipe. There's a strange, almost comical absurdity to it. You realize you can now understand the lyrics to every foreign song you've ever heard, from Japanese city pop to German industrial metal. The mystery is gone, replaced by a universal and perhaps blander understanding. You walk through your home, touching familiar objects, the book on your nightstand, a beloved novel you've read half a dozen times. You open it. The story is the same, the plot points are all there, but the prose, the beautiful, specific, carefully chosen words of the author are gone. They have been transposed. You can read the story, but the author's voice has been silenced, replaced by the universal, monotone hum of this new global speech. The soul of it is gone. You feel a profound sense of loss, a grief for something you can't even name anymore. You have gained the world, it seems, but lost your home, and the day has only just begun. The silence isn't an absence of sound, it's the absence of difference. Are you still awake? If you are, let me tell you what happens when you finally step outside and have your first clumsy conversation in this new world. You take a steadying breath, the air feeling no different in your lungs, yet the world it belongs to is utterly changed. You have to go outside. Hiding in your home is a tempting thought, a quiet retreat from the global linguistic reboot, but it's impossible. Life, in its insistent, mundane way, must go on. You need coffee? The thought is so normal, so routine, that it feels like a lifeline. If you can still perform that simple, everyday ritual, maybe you're not completely adrift. You grab your keys and wallet, the familiar weight in your hand a small comfort, and you open the door. The hallway of your building is the first true test. Mrs. Gable from 3B is there, watering a slightly sad-looking fern. Normally, your exchange is a complex dance of smiles, nods, and a few mismatched pleasantries in your respective languages, a friendly but slightly clumsy interaction. Today, as she looks up, her eyes widen slightly, betraying the same bewildered apprehension you feel. "It's a strange one," she says. The words float out of her mouth, and you understand them with chilling perfection. The thought in your head is to reply with your usual, "Good morning, have a great day." But that's not what comes out. A different phrase, the new default greeting, emerges from your own lips. "The air is new today." The sound of your own voice in speaking these alien words is profoundly jarring. It's you, your vocal cords, your breath, but the output is foreign. It's like typing on a keyboard where all the keys have been remapped. Your muscle memory is fighting a battle it has already lost. Mrs. Gable just nods slowly, a shared, unspoken acknowledgement passing between you. There's nothing else to say. The old scripts for casual neighborly chatter have been deleted from the system. You both know it. You give a small, tight-lipped smile, and she returns it. Walking down the street is a sensory overload. The new language is everywhere, a constant uniform hum. You pass a bakery, and the smell of fresh bread is the same, a comforting anchor to yesterday. But the sign in the window, advertising the day's specials, is written in the new script. You read it without trying. Sun-risen loaf, twice-baked crisps. The descriptions are literal, almost childlike. All the poetry, the little flourishes of marketing language that existed just 24 hours ago, has evaporated. You reach your usual cafe. The familiar bell chimes above the door. A few people are dotted around the tables, nursing cups and staring blankly into the middle distance or at their phones. The usual lively buzz is gone, replaced by a subdued quiet. The conversations are clipped, functional. A couple at a corner table, who normally bicker and laugh with theatrical passion, are speaking in low, careful tones, their hands doing most of the talking. It's a well-known fact that a huge percentage of communication, some studies say as much as 55 to 90%, is nonverbal. Today, it feels like the whole world is relearning this lesson, clinging to gestures and expressions as the only familiar territory. You step up to the counter. The young barista, who usually has a witty, slightly sarcastic remark for you, simply looks at you with tired eyes. "What can be for you?" he asks. Again, the grammar feels flattened, simplified. You intend to order your usual large dark roast, but the name for it in your mind has been replaced. "One hot black water," you hear yourself say. It's a horrifyingly literal description. You feel a flush of embarrassment, as if you've said something foolish, but the barista just nods and turns to the machine. There is no follow-up, no coming right up, no good choice. The transaction is stripped bare. While you wait, you notice the absence of what linguists call phatic expressions. Those little verbal cushions we use to soften conversations, the well, you know, actually, and I mean, they are gone. Conversation has become a series of direct data transfers. Person A states a need. Person B fulfills it. It's efficient, but deeply, deeply inhuman. You wonder, with a strange sense of academic detachment, what has happened to jokes. How do you construct a pun when there is only one word for everything, with no double meanings? How do you use irony when the language is so brutally direct? It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with only a single gray crayon. Your coffee arrives. You pay the numbers on the screen, and the words for them as new as everything else. You sit at a small table and take a sip. It tastes the same, thank God. That, at least, is real. You watch the other patrons. You see their frustration, their confusion, their grief. A woman is trying to explain something to her friend, her hands flying, her face a mask of exasperation. She's searching for a word, a concept, that the new language seemingly can't accommodate. It's a ghost limb, a phantom itch in the brain for a tool that is no longer there. Scientists still argue whether bilinguals possess subtly different personalities when they switch between languages, their mannerisms, and even their worldview shifting with the vocabulary. You now realize that this wasn't just a debate. It was a fundamental truth about the human condition. The world hasn't just lost languages. It has lost personalities, billions of them. Everyone has been forced into a single, uniform psychic costume. You feel a part of yourself has died, the part that knew the specific lullabies of your childhood, the sharp-witted slang of your teenage years, the tender private vocabulary of love. You finish your coffee in the quiet, sterile cafe. The experience was successful. You acquired the beverage you sought, but you feel more alone than ever, sitting in a room full of people you can perfectly understand. The shared static of misunderstanding was, you realize, a form of connection in itself. The effort, the guesswork, the shared laughter at a linguistic mistake, it all forged a bond. Now there is only clarity, and in that clarity, there's a vast, cold emptiness. The world is a library where all the books have been translated into a single, brutally simplistic text, and all the nuance has been lost in the process. You've had your first contact with the new world, and it was little more than a successful database query. When you're ready, when you've finished your own hot black water, I will tell you about the ghost words that now haunt your every thought. You leave the cafe, the lukewarm dregs of your hot black water, a bitter taste on your tongue. The street seems louder now, as if your senses, deprived of linguistic variety, are trying to compensate by turning up the volume on everything else. The rumble of a bus, the squeak of a bicycle's brakes, the sharp clap of a shop's security gate coming down, they're all just raw data, stripped of the names you once gave them. You decide to walk, to simply move through this new, uniform world, and let the strangeness wash over you. It's during this walk that you first truly feel them, the ghosts. It starts as a subtle, cognitive itch. You see a particular shade of deep, twilight blue in the evening sky, just above the rooftops, where the last of the sun's glow is fading. Your mind leaps to find the word for it. In your old language, you had a specific, beautiful term for that exact color, a word that was more than a description. It was a feeling, a whole poem in 3 syllables. But as your brain reaches for it, it hits a wall. The file is gone. The new language offers a replacement, dark sky color. It's accurate, it's functional, and it's utterly dead. The ghost of the old word lingers, a perfect, detailed silhouette that the new, clumsy term cannot fill. It's a phantom pain in your vocabulary. You keep walking, and the ghosts multiply. You think of a meal your mother used to make, a specific stew with a name that meant both Sunday dinner and home. There is no equivalent. The new language allows you to list the ingredients, to describe the cooking process, but it cannot capture the single-word symphony of warmth, family, and lazy afternoon naps. You try to hum a nursery rhyme from your childhood, but the words that gave it rhythm and meaning are gone, replaced by the new language's literal translation, which scans awkwardly and holds no magic. The melody is a skeleton without its flesh. The average person, you recall reading once, has an active vocabulary of about 20,000 words and a passive one of double that. A vast personal library of terms you understand even if you don't use them daily. You feel the loss of that 40,000 word library keenly. It's a mass extinction event in the ecosystem of your mind. All the synonyms, all the subtle gradations of meaning have been flattened. You used to know a dozen words for walk, to stroll, to amble, to trudge, to stride, to march, to wander, to saunter. Each painted a different picture, gave a different motion and mood. Now you only have to move by foot. You feel your own thoughts becoming simpler, duller, constrained by the limited tools you've been given. This brings you to a peculiar fringe case of language, onomatopoeia. What happens to words that sound like what they are? You pass a construction site where a worker is hammering a nail. Bang, bang, bang. Or at least, that's the sound you expect. You ask your own mind what that sound is, and the answer comes back, sterile and descriptive. The sound of hard impact. Has the word bang ceased to exist? Do bees no longer buzz? Do cats no longer purr? It seems the inherent poetry, the playful imitative joy of language, was deemed inefficient in the upgrade. A kid in this new world wouldn't draw a comic with pow W and zap in it. They'd have to write forceful contact noise. It would be, you think, with a sad little smile, a very boring comic. You find a small park and sit on a bench, watching the world go by. You see a young couple on a nearby bench, clearly in love, whispering to each other. They are smiling, but their conversation seems to lack a certain spark. You wonder about the words they are using. What has happened to terms of endearment, the 1,000 private, silly, beautiful nicknames couples invent for each other? Are they all replaced by a single standard issue term for loved one? How do you convey the unique, specific affection you feel for one person with a generic label? You think of a word from a language you never even spoke but knew of, the Portuguese saudade, a deep, melancholic longing for something or someone absent. You feel it now, a profound saudade for your own lost language. But when you try to name the feeling, your brain offers only sadness for a thing that is gone, close but no soul. Scientists still argue whether language determines thought or merely influences it. From your vantage point on this park bench, the debate seems settled. It's determination. Your thoughts are being forced into pre-cut channels. You can have any thought you like, as long as it fits the shapes provided. You try to formulate a complex abstract idea about freedom, but the words are blunt instruments, not surgical tools. It's like trying to perform neurosurgery with a hammer. You even try to think of a really good, cutting insult for whatever cosmic entity decided to do this to you all. The best your new lexicon can muster is, you are a non-optimal system administrator. It lacks the punch you were hoping for. The phantom aches are becoming stronger. They are the ghosts of jokes that can no longer be told, of poems that can no longer be read, of songs that can no longer be sung with their original heart. They are the ghosts of identity. So much of who you were was tied up in the way you spoke, the dialect of your region, the slang of your generation. That's all gone. You are now, linguistically, the same as everyone else on the planet, a standard unit. And as you sit there, watching the dark sky color deepen, you realize that this loss isn't just personal. Every book, every film, every song, every piece of recorded human art created before today has become a relic, a beautiful, untranslatable fossil. Are you still with me, lost in thought on this park bench? Good, because next, you're going to see what happens when the world tries to listen to its own music for the very first time. Sitting on that park bench, under the deepening dark sky color, a new kind of dread, a cultural dread, begins to creep in. The ghosts of your personal vocabulary are one thing. The ghosts of humanity's shared art are another. You pull out your phone and your earbuds, the movements slow, almost ritualistic. You need to know. You need to hear the damage for yourself. With a feeling like you're about to willingly listen to a recording of a beloved friend's voice after they've passed away, you open your music app. You start with a song from home, a song so familiar you could map every beat, every breath the singer took. It was a fiery, passionate anthem of youthful rebellion, the kind of song you screamed along to in your car with the windows down. The opening guitar riff is unchanged, a comforting electric snarl. Your heart gives a little leap of hope. Maybe the music survived. Maybe it was just the written and spoken word that was altered. Then the vocals come in. The voice is the same. The singer's unique, gritty timbre is there. But the words are wrong. They are the words of the new language, the globos, or unilingo, or whatever people are silently deciding to call it. The lyrics, which once rhymed and scanned with a poet's precision, are now a clunky literal translation. The furious, eloquent demand for freedom is now a staid, almost polite request for increased personal autonomy. The meter is shot, the rhymes are gone, the singer's passionate wail is now attached to words that have all the emotional resonance of a legal document. It's grotesque. You feel a wave of revulsion and snatch the earbuds out. The singer's voice, once a source of strength, now sounds like a puppet's. But you have to be sure. You force yourself to continue the experiment. You choose an opera aria next, a piece by Puccini you always loved not for the words, which you never understood, but for the raw, soaring emotion in the soprano's voice. You brace yourself and press play. The magnificent, sweeping orchestra begins. And then the voice, and you understand her. She is singing about a lost love, but the translation is so blunt, so devoid of poetry, it's almost comical. I feel negative because you are not here, she sings, her voice breaking with a soaring, magnificent grief that the words themselves betray. My emotional state is suboptimal. It's like watching a master painter forced to color in a child's cartoon. The skill is there, but the medium is an insult to the art. It makes sense in a horrible, clinical way. Neurologists have shown us that the language and music processing centers in our brains are deeply intertwined. Areas like Broca's and Wernicke's, crucial for speech production and comprehension, light up when we listen to music too. Melody and syntax, rhythm and cadence, they are siblings in the mind. To sever the original language from the music is to leave the melody with a phantom limb, forever reaching for a partner that is no longer there. You switch genres, diving into the global catalog, a famous K-pop track known for its high-energy beats and slick production. The lyrics, you now understand, are about the joy of purchasing expensive clothes. A German industrial song's guttural, angry shouts are now perfectly understandable as a complaint about municipal zoning laws. You even try some classic American gangster rap. The swaggering, complex internal rhymes that were a hallmark of the artist are gone, replaced by, I possess significant financial assets and have disagreements with my competitors. It would be hilarious if it weren't so tragic. The art of the lyricist is dead. The only thing that matters now is the literal meaning, stripped of all style, wit, or grace. What about music without words? You wonder about the fringe art of scatting in jazz, where singers improvise with nonsensical syllables. Is that the only authentic vocal music left? A world where the only honest singers are the ones who weren't making sense in the first place? You pull up a track by Ella Fitzgerald. Her voice dances and swoops, free and untethered to semantic meaning. It sounds perfect, unchanged. For a moment, it's a profound relief. Instrumental music, too, you realize, would be untouched. Symphonies, concertos, electronic dance music, jazz solos, all of these would survive. Perhaps this is the new world, a world of instrumentals and scat, where the human voice is only welcome if it has nothing to say. Then your mind turns to poetry. You type the title of a famous sonnet into the search bar, one by Shakespeare. Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? The line comes up, but it reads, proposal, to measure your qualities against a day in the season of sun. The iambic pentameter is a corpse. The romance is an algorithm. You check a Japanese haiku, the strict 575 syllable structure, its entire essence, is gone. It's just a short, descriptive sentence about a frog in a pond. The form, the vessel that gave the content its shape and beauty, has been shattered. Scientists still argue whether our emotional responses to music, the happiness of a major key, the sadness of a minor one, are innate to all humans, or something we learn from our culture. This new reality complicates that debate beautifully. Can a song in a major key still sound happy if the newly translated lyrics are about the slow, methodical decay of organic matter? Does the conditioning of the melody win, or does the cold, hard meaning of the new words overpower it? You are a walking experiment in cognitive dissonance, your brain struggling to reconcile the emotional cues of the music with the sterile information of the lyrics. You turn off your phone, the silence in your ears, a welcome respite. The world's entire library of song and verse has been transformed into a museum of curiosities overnight. You can study the melodies, you can read the literal translations of the words, but you can never again experience the art as it was intended. It is all documentation now. The spirit has fled the machine, And as you sit there, you feel your own internal monologue, your own way of thinking, begin to feel a little flatter, a little less poetic. The tools for art are gone, not just from the world, but from your own head. Are you feeling that quietness settle into your own mind? When you are ready, we will explore just how deep this change goes and how this new language begins to fundamentally remap your very thoughts. You rise from the park bench, leaving the ghosts of song and poetry behind, but the silence they left follows you. It's not in your ears anymore, it's in your head. The world feels muted, not because the volume is down, but because the richness, the texture, has been smoothed into a featureless plane. As you walk home, through the evening streets, you turn your attention inward, trying to observe the process of your own thinking. The discovery that awaits you there, in the quiet theater of your own mind, is more unsettling than any translated song. Your thoughts are no longer entirely your own. The first thing you notice is the death of metaphor. You look at the streetlights casting long, lonely shadows, and you try to capture the image in your mind. The old you might have thought, the shadows are dark fingers reaching across the pavement. It's a simple, almost cliché metaphor, but it has a spark of imagination. Now, when you try to form that thought, your brain hits a snag. The new language, in its brutal efficiency, resists such comparisons. The internal monologue comes out as, the absence of light caused by opaque objects is elongated. The poetry is gone, surgically removed. It feels as if a fundamental tool of creative thought has been taken from you. You try again, looking at the moon. The moon is a pearl. The moon is a glowing orb of rock. Her laughter was music. The sound she produced was pleasant. This isn't just about flowery language. It's about the very architecture of understanding. We grasp complex ideas by comparing them to simple ones. Love is a journey. An argument is a war. Time is money. You realize this new language seems to have stripped away this metaphorical underpinning of cognition, leaving only the literal. And a world without metaphor is a world without a certain kind of depth, a certain kind of creative leap. Your own mind feels like it's being forced to walk everywhere when it used to be able to fly. This leads to the next unsettling realization. Your thinking is becoming relentlessly linear. Before, your thoughts could pinball around, connecting disparate ideas through a shared sound, a pun, a linguistic coincidence. A word in one context could remind you of a song, which would remind you of a person, which would lead to a memory, a rich, associative web of consciousness. Now those links are broken. The new language is built on logic, not association. A leads to B leads to C. There are no winding side paths, no secret tunnels between concepts. Thinking feels less like a vibrant, chaotic ecosystem and more like a sterile, efficient assembly line. Psychologists make a distinction between divergent and convergent thinking. Convergent thinking is logical, systematic, aimed at finding one single correct answer. Divergent thinking is the opposite. It's the chaotic, creative, messy process of generating a multitude of ideas and possibilities. Our old, beautifully flawed languages were excellent tools for divergent thought. This new one, this is a convergent machine. It's perfect for solving an engineering problem or filing taxes, but it feels utterly useless for writing a story, inventing a new recipe, or simply daydreaming. You try to let your mind wander, but it keeps snapping back to a single, logical track. The mental straitjacket is tightening. You recall a quirky linguistic feature from your old world, auto-antonyms or contronyms. Words like sanction, which could mean both to approve and to penalize, or dust, which could mean to remove dust or to add it. These paradoxical words were delightful little knots in the fabric of language, forcing you to rely on context, creating ambiguity and richness. Such a thing, you are certain, could not exist in this new language. It is ruthlessly logical. Every word has one meaning, and one meaning only. The universe has been debugged, all its interesting, chaotic glitches patched out of existence. The thought is profoundly depressing. Scientists still argue whether the brain's fundamental structure can be significantly rewired by experience after childhood, a concept known as neuroplasticity. Most agree it can, but the extent is debated. You feel like you are a living, breathing testament to its awesome and terrifying power. It's not just that you're using new words. You can feel the very pathways of your brain being rerouted. The well-worn grooves of your native tongue, carved over a lifetime, are being paved over. The change feels physical, as if your gray matter is being reorganized to be more efficient, less imaginative. You are being optimized. When you get home, you try to distract yourself with a simple task, fixing a loose cabinet handle. As you look at the screw and the screwdriver, you try to brainstorm solutions, but your mind serves up only the most direct, obvious one. The usual cascade of what-if scenarios. What if I used glue? What if I propped it up with this? What if I tried a different kind of screw? Is gone. Your problem solving has become as literal as your language. It's a chilling thought. What happens to human ingenuity in a world that can only think in straight lines? What happens to invention, to art, to philosophy? You slump onto your sofa, the unfixed cabinet forgotten. You close your eyes and try to just be, but your internal monologue won't shut up, and its voice is changing. It's losing your unique cadence, your personal rhythm. It's starting to sound like the news anchor from the TV, like the barista in the cafe, like everyone. It's the voice of the system. The new language isn't just a tool you use. It's a parasite that's rewriting your consciousness from the inside out. You're not just losing your words, you're losing yourself. Try to rest now if you can. Try to find a quiet corner in your monolingual mind, because when we continue, you will see how this internal change begins to manifest on a global scale, creating a great and terrible forgetting. You remain on the sofa, the silence in your head a heavy blanket. The cabinet handle remains loose, a minor problem you suddenly lack the cognitive flexibility to solve creatively. So you do what people have always done when faced with a creeping, existential dread they can't fix. You turn on the television. You flick through channels, not really watching, just letting the images and the single, monotonous voice of the new language wash over you. It is here, in the flickering light of the screen, that you begin to see the true, terrifying scope of the great forgetting. An old documentary is playing. It's about a remote community in the Amazon. In the world of yesterday, you would have heard the poetic rhythms of their native tongue, subtitled for your understanding. You would have heard their unique stories, their myths, their intricate knowledge of the rainforest's flora and fauna. Now the footage is the same, but it has been overdubbed. An elder, his face a beautiful map of wrinkles and wisdom, speaks, but his mouth moves out of sync with the words you hear, the sterile, universal words. He is talking about a sacred plant. The new language calls it long-leafed medicinal plant. You have a sinking feeling that in his own now extinct language, the word for that plant was probably something that also meant the spirit of the forest or grandmother's healing hand. All that knowledge, all that worldview is gone. The translation conveys the data, but loses the wisdom. This is the crux of the great forgetting. It's a well-known, tragic fact from our old world that a language dies approximately every 2 weeks, and with it vanishes a repository of unique human knowledge. We were losing encyclopedias. What has happened now is the instantaneous, simultaneous burning of every library on Earth. The specific, nuanced understanding of place, of medicine, of spirituality, of kinship, all the things that language evolves to describe, has been wiped clean. You switch the channel. It's a news report about a national holiday in a country across the world. There are images of parades, people in traditional dress, specific foods being prepared. But the news anchor's explanation of the holiday is bafflingly thin. Today, the people of this region celebrate a historical event of military victory, he says. The name of the holiday, the names of the heroes, the rousing stories passed down through generations, they're all gone. The cultural shorthand has been deleted. Imagine trying to explain Thanksgiving by saying it is a feast to commemorate a meal between prior and new inhabitants. The entire soul of the event is lost. The traditions continue for now out of habit, but they are becoming hollow pantomimes. The why is fading, leaving only the empty ritual. You think about your own culture's folklore, the specific names of mythical creatures, the cautionary tales told to children, the proverbs that encapsulated generations of wisdom in a single, memorable phrase. You try to recall one such proverb, something about patience or hard work. The concept is vaguely there, but the witty, poetic phrasing that made it stick in the mind is gone. The new language offers a replacement. It is advantageous to persist through difficulty. It's true, but it has no heart. It would never survive a generation. It's not a story. It's a memo. This erosion of identity is everywhere. Historians still argue whether nations are ancient, organic entities that have existed for millennia or imagined communities, as the scholar Benedict Anderson put it, built and held together by the glue of shared language and shared stories printed in newspapers and books. You are now seeing that theory tested in the most brutal way possible. With the unique, binding language gone, the imagined communities are starting to fray. The powerful emotional pull of patriotism becomes difficult when the foundational texts, the fiery speeches, the national anthems have all been rendered into flat, literal prose. A would-be demagogue trying to stir a crowd to nationalistic fervor would just sound like an incredibly boring project manager outlining synergy goals. You see a cooking show. The host is in Hawaii, making a traditional dish. He holds up a taro root. This is the core ingredient, he says, for the food paste. He seems to stumble over the words, frustrated. You remember reading once about the Hawaiian concept of kuleana. It's a word that means both right and responsibility. The privilege to use the land comes with the sacred duty to care for it. The concepts are inseparable. How would you even begin to explain that now? The new language has a word for right and a different word for responsibility. The profound, elegant wisdom of their inseparability is lost. It's not just a word that has died, it's an entire ethical framework. The forgetting seeps into everything. The names of streets, cities, and landmarks, which often told a story about the history of a place, are being replaced by functional descriptors. Your city might no longer be named after its founder or a saint, but may soon be designated Coastal Habitation Zone 7. The names of dishes on a menu, once telling tales of queens and dukes and historical accidents, are now just lists of ingredients. Pizza margherita becomes flatbread with tomato, cheese, and basil. The story, the little piece of culture you consume with the food, is gone. You lean back and close your eyes, the television a meaningless drone. You realize that humanity has been given a terrible gift, perfect understanding at the cost of all meaning. We have been unified into a single, cohesive, and profoundly shallow entity. We have lost our collective memory. We are all becoming strangers to our own history, our own cultures, our own grandparents. We are all suffering from a global, induced dementia. The past is no longer a country we can visit. It's a text we can no longer read. Try to hold on to a memory, a real one, with all its original color and sound, because when we continue, we will look away from the screen and see the very real, tangible chaos this great forgetting is causing in the world of money, work, and power. The television continues its drone, a newscast now, showing stock market tickers from around the world. The numbers are a sea of red, down, down, down. It's not just the generalized panic of an incomprehensible global event. You realize you are watching the instantaneous, surgical removal of entire sectors of the human economy. The Great Forgetting wasn't just a cultural tragedy, it's an economic cataclysm. You finally push yourself off the sofa, drawn to your laptop. You need to see the fallout not in the abstract terms of history and poetry, but in the cold, hard language of commerce, the only language that perhaps has gained power in this new world. The first and most obvious casualty is the language industry itself. You pull up a financial news site. The headlines, in their stark, new language simplicity, tell the story. Global translation services value now zero. Language education sector disappears. It's staggering to comprehend. The global language industry, a behemoth worth tens of billions of dollars just yesterday, has been wiped out. You think of the millions of people whose entire livelihood depended on the beautiful friction between tongues, the translators in their booths at the UN, the interpreters on conference calls, the teachers in countless classrooms, the developers behind translation apps, an entire thriving ecosystem of human connection gone in a puff of logic. Then you start thinking about the secondary effects, the ripples spreading outwards. You look at the stock value of major global brands, plummeting. A company that spent 50 years and billions of dollars building a brand name that evoked luxury in French, reliability in German, and innovation in Japanese, now has a name that is just a meaningless collection of sounds. Their carefully crafted advertisements, full of cultural nuance and linguistic persuasion, are now just moving pictures with a flat, literal description of the product attached. The entire multi-trillion-dollar advertising and marketing industry is in cardiac arrest. copywriters, brand strategists, localization experts, their skills are now as relevant as those of a blacksmith in a world of 3D printers. You remember reading about the quirky but vital job of a video game localization specialist. These weren't just translators, they were cultural magicians, changing jokes, character designs, and even plot points to make a game resonate with a different culture. That entire creative field is now not only obsolete, its very purpose is nonsensical. Why adapt something for a culture when culture itself is being systematically dismantled? But chaos, as always, is a ladder. As you scroll through the panicked news feeds, you begin to see the green shoots of a new economy emerging from the ruins of the old. Bizarre new job titles are appearing in corporate memos and government postings. Contextual analyst, pre-hush information specialist, legacy language archivist. These are the new boom jobs. They are for people who can remember the old ways, who can explain to a confused marketing team why their product called Nova used to be a terrible name in Spanish-speaking markets. They are linguistic archaeologists hired not to speak the dead languages, but to document them, to explain their ghosts to the new monolingual world. They are the curators of the great forgetting. An even more massive, albeit temporary industry is exploding in the tech sector. Adaptation engineering. Every line of code ever written, every technical manual, every database entry with comments in Hindi or German or Russian needs to be converted. The entire digital backbone of our civilization is written in a multitude of dead languages. For now, the code itself still works, a ghost in the machine running on principles that its new users can't fully comprehend from the documentation. The rush to translate it all into the new universal language is a gold rush of epic proportions, creating a bubble of frantic, high-stakes work. Economists still argue whether a truly perfect market, one with complete and instantaneous information for all participants, could ever really exist. This new world offers a twisted mockery of that ideal. Everyone now has perfect linguistic information. You can read a stock report from Tokyo as easily as one from Toronto. But the cultural context, the political nuance, the on-the-ground feeling that skilled traders relied on is gone. This perfect information is actually incomplete, and it's leading to spectacularly bad decisions. The market is a blind man who can suddenly hear everything with perfect clarity, but understands nothing of what it means. The human cost is immense. You get a message from a friend who spent a decade becoming a certified court interpreter. "I am now a historical artifact," she writes. The message is blunt, devoid of the usual wry humor that colored her texts. That part of her, the witty wordsmith, has been retired along with her profession. You think of the publishers who specialized in bringing foreign literature to new audiences, their warehouses now full of beautifully printed, worthless paper. You think of elderly immigrants in care homes, their last connection to their childhood, the sound of their mother tongue, now severed. They are the most isolated of all. A strange, dark humor pervades the corporate response. You see a leaked memo from a megacorporation trying to spin the apocalypse. This global linguistic realignment presents an unprecedented opportunity to synergize our brand messaging and streamline interdepartmental communication. It reads, "It's the kind of meaningless corporate jargon that was funny yesterday, but today it feels like the only dialect the new language is truly suited for. In this brave new world, it seems, everyone will sound like a middle manager from human resources. As the economic quake continues to shudder through the foundations of society, you realize the response won't be universal acceptance. The human spirit, with its stubborn attachment to identity and memory, won't go down without a fight. Somewhere, in the quiet corners of the world, people must be resisting. They must be trying to hold on to what was lost. Are you still with me, watching the world economy recalibrate itself? Good, because when you're ready, I'll take you to the quiet places where the rebels are gathering, where the first whispers of linguistic defiance are beginning to be heard. The thought that resistance must exist somewhere follows you from your laptop, a persistent, hopeful echo in the sterile silence of your mind. It can't be that everyone simply accepted this. Humanity is too stubborn, too sentimental, too deeply in love with its own creations to let them all go without a fight. The thought becomes an obsession. You start looking for it, for the cracks in the smooth, monolithic facade of the new world. You start paying attention not to what is being said, but to how it's being said. You look for inefficiencies, for moments of hesitation, for any sign that someone is fighting the new programming. For days, you find nothing. The world remains stubbornly, efficiently monolingual. Then, one afternoon, you get a message. It's a reply to a comment you left on an online forum for old film enthusiasts, a forum that has become a sad, quiet place. Your comment was a lament for the lost dialogue in a classic movie. The reply is just a single line. In the new language, it translates to, some things are better when they are not simple, but it's the word chosen for simple that makes you pause. It's an awkward, clunky choice, a word that is technically correct, but completely unnatural. A more efficient word existed. The choice was deliberate. It was a signal. Below the text is a simple address and a time. You feel a jolt of something you haven't felt in weeks, a nervous, thrilling flutter of anticipation. The address is in a forgotten part of the city, a tangle of old streets that redevelopment has yet to flatten. You go. You find a small, unassuming shop selling old vinyl records, a business that should, by all rights, be bankrupt. The air inside smells of dust and paper and time. An old woman at the counter looks up, gives you a slow, appraising glance, and then nods towards a door at the back, covered by a curtain of beads. You push through the beads and down a narrow flight of stairs into a basement. The air here is warm, thick with the smell of coffee and old books. About a dozen people are gathered in a small, cluttered room, and they are talking, but they are struggling. For the first time since the hush, you hear sounds that are not the clean, crisp phonetics of the new language. You hear the ghost of Spanish, a hint of Mandarin, the guttural echo of German. It is a beautiful, broken mess. These are the code switchers, the memory keepers. They are not hackers or soldiers, but librarians, poets, teachers, grandparents. They are linguistic rebels. You are welcomed with a quiet nod and offered a seat on a wobbly chair. You listen, mesmerized. A young man is holding up a tattered copy of 100 Years of Solitude and is trying painstakingly to read a sentence in its original Spanish. His accent is thick with the new language, his brain fighting him every step of the way. He stumbles, stops, closes his eyes in concentration. An older woman next to him whispers the next word like a prompt in a play. He latches onto it, repeats it, and a look of triumphant joy crosses his face. It is the most heroic act you have witnessed in this new world. Their methods are a desperate, ad hoc recreation of language preservation techniques from the old world. In our time, it's a known fact that dedicated communities have saved endangered languages using language nests and master apprentice programs. This group has spontaneously formed a similar support system. They have physical books, a precious, finite resource. They have vinyl records of old folk songs they play on a turntable, singing along softly, trying to force their mouths and tongues back into the old, familiar shapes. It's a form of physiotherapy for the parts of the soul that have atrophied. Linguists still argue whether it's truly possible to achieve native-like fluency in a language after puberty, the famous critical period hypothesis. These rebels are the inverse of that theory. They are adults trying to reclaim a native fluency that was stolen from them, and the effort is monumental. Their brains have been rewired, and they are now fighting to rewire them back. A man in the corner is using a technique you've only read about, the memory palace. He sits with his eyes closed, mentally walking through the rooms of his childhood home, placing a forgotten word in each location, the word for cinnamon in the spice drawer, the word for giggle in his sister's old bedroom, building a secret museum in his mind to protect the artifacts from the flood. There's a strange, gentle humor in their struggle. A woman tries to tell a classic Yiddish joke, one that relies entirely on a subtle, untranslatable pun. She gets halfway through, forgets the punchline word, and just shrugs. Well, the idea was funny, she says in the broken English they are all trying to revive, and everyone laughs. It's not a laugh at the failed joke, but a laugh of pure, unadulterated camaraderie. The shared effort is the punchline. The joy is in the trying. The simple, intense effort to remember the word for daffodil is treated with the gravity and focus of a space launch. This is not without risk. Their activity isn't illegal. There are no laws against memory yet, but it is deeply subversive. In a world being optimized for unity, their embrace of the messy, inefficient, diverse past is a threat. They are willfully cultivating what the new order sees as a mental illness. They risk being seen as unstable, as Luddites, as obstacles to progress. They could lose their jobs, their social standing. They are guarding the embers of 1,000 fires, hoping that one day the wind will change. You are offered a book, a collection of poetry in your own lost mother tongue. You open it. The letters are familiar, but your brain struggles to assemble them into the sounds you once knew. You try to read a line aloud. The word feels like a piece of grit in your mouth, unnatural, difficult. But you say it, and in the saying a ghost stirs, a flicker of a memory, a feeling, a scent. It's a pinprick of light in the vast darkness. For the first time, you don't just feel like a victim of the change. You feel like a participant in the resistance. As you sit in this warm, secret room, listening to the beautiful, broken sounds of the past, you can't help but wonder what all this means for the future. What about the ones who have no past to remember? What about the children? Rest here for a moment, in this pocket of defiance. When you are ready to go back out into the brave new world, I will show you what it's like for a child taking their first steps and speaking their first words. You leave the basement of the memory keepers, the taste of your own broken, resurrected language still on your tongue. It was a taste of hope, but also of profound melancholy. Climbing the stairs and pushing back through the beaded curtain feels like re-entering a different dimension. You step out of the record shop and back into the bright, clear, monolingual day. The contrast is jarring. The quiet defiance of the basement felt warm and human. The effortless unity of the street now feels cold and alien. Your path home takes you past a public park, and you hear it before you see it. The sound of children playing. It's a sound that should be universal, timeless, but it's different now. The shrieks of joy, the laughter, those are the same. But the chatter, the river of words that flows beneath the playing, is the sound of the new language. You stop and watch them, a small group of kids chasing each other around a brightly colored climbing frame, and you realize, with a sudden heavy certainty, that the rebels in the basement are destined to lose. For these children, there is no loss. There is no ghost tongue, no phantom pain. The new language is not a piece of software that was installed overnight. It is the very operating system they were born with. It's a well-known fact of linguistics that a child's brain is astonishingly plastic. During a critical developmental window, they can absorb the rules, rhythms, and sounds of a language with a perfection that adults can almost never replicate. These children are the first true natives of this new world. They speak the language fluently, flawlessly, without the accent of a lost mother tongue that subtly marks every adult. You listen to their conversation as they negotiate the rules of a game. It is a marvel of pure logic. If you are on the yellow platform, you are safe from the tagger, a little girl declares. That is Rule 1. Rule 2, the tagger must count to 20 before pursuit. This is the designated time unit. There is no argument, no fair, no, that's not how we played yesterday. The rules are laid out like code, and the others simply nod and comply. It's efficient, it's clear, and it's completely devoid of the chaotic, creative, and often illogical squabbling that you remember from your own childhood. A young boy stumbles and scrapes his knee. He begins to cry. His mother, sitting on a bench nearby, rushes over. She comforts him, hugging him and checking the injury. You have sustained a minor abrasion, she says in the new language, her voice full of a warmth and love that the words themselves do not carry. The pain sensation will decrease. She is trying to pour all the comforting nonsense a parent would normally use, kiss it better, or brave soldier, into a vessel that cannot hold it. The boy just nods, his tears subsiding. He understands the facts of his situation. He has received the data. But the intergenerational transfer of comfort, wrapped in the specific, non-literal poetry of a parent's cooing, is gone. You are witnessing a profound and invisible disconnect, a gap opening between generations. You think of the FIS phenomenon from old world child psychology, the observation that a child might pronounce fish as fis, yet become annoyed if an adult points to a fish and calls it a fis. The child can perceive the correct sound long before they can produce it. You wonder if all the adults in the world are now suffering from a kind of reverse FIS phenomenon on a massive scale. You can still dimly perceive the memory of your language's richness, its emotional depth, its poetry, but you can no longer produce it. These children have neither. For them, fish is fish. There is no difference because there was never another option. Educators still argue whether fables and fairy tales, with their clear but allegorical moral lessons, are essential for a child's ethical development. What will happen to a generation that grows up without them? The story of The Boy Who Cried Wolf isn't just about the tactical disadvantage of lying. It's a complex narrative about community, trust, and consequences. How do you convey that in the new language? The male child repeatedly made false statements, resulting in a degradation of communal trust and leading to a negative outcome involving a predatory animal. The story is there, but the magic, the thing that makes it stick in a child's soul, has been exorcised. The moral compass of this new generation will be forged not by ancient wisdom wrapped in story, but by the cold, hard logic of the language they speak. You watch as one of the children, the little girl who was defining the rules, starts telling a story to her friends. You lean in slightly, curious. What does a child's story sound like in this new world? A person went to a place, she begins, her voice serious. The person needed an object. They performed 3 tasks to acquire the object. Then they went to a different place. The end. The other children nod, seemingly satisfied. Her story was logical. It had a clear objective and a resolution. It was also, to your ears, utterly barren. There was no character, no description, no wonder, no what if. It was a mission report. This is their lexicon, a language without history, without ambiguity, without metaphor, without myth. It is a language of pure function. And these children, the first generation of its speakers, are a reflection of it. They are bright, logical, and cooperative. But a part of what you have always considered to be human, the messy, magical storytelling part, seems to be missing. They are not empty, but they are streamlined. And as you watch them play in the fading light, you feel a new kind of sadness. It's not for what you have lost. It's for what they will never know they are missing. Are you still here in the park with me, watching the future? Good. Let's see what happens when these brutally literal children encounter one of humanity's most nuanced and fragile inventions, a joke. You remain by the park, a silent observer of the first generation of true natives. A father comes to collect his son from the sandbox. "Time to go," the father says, and then with a playful tone you recognize as a relic of the old world, he adds, "Your dinner is going to run away if we're late." He's trying for a little piece of nonsense, a gentle joke to soften the command. The son looks up at him, his expression not one of amusement, but of genuine analytical confusion. "Food does not have locomotive capability," the child states simply. The father's smile falters. He just nods, takes the boy's hand, and leads him away. In that single tiny interaction, you witness the death of an entire mode of human connection. The joke has become a simple error of fact. This is the new reality of humor. It's an art form that relied almost entirely on the beautiful flaws of language, its ambiguities, its double meanings, its cultural baggage. With those flaws patched and streamlined, humor itself has to be reinvented or die. The most immediate and obvious casualty is the pun. It cannot exist. A language where every word has one and only one specific meaning has made the pun structurally impossible. It's like trying to build a bridge with no river to cross. Sarcasm and irony are the next to fall. They were the subtle arts of saying one thing and meaning another, a dance of tone and context. But in a world that prizes literalism, and for a generation that has never known anything else, the dance is impossible. The subtext is gone. You test it yourself. The next day at a cafe, the automated server brings you a lukewarm coffee. You turn to the person at the next table and say in the new language, "The thermal state of this beverage is optimal." You use the most sarcastic, biting tone you can muster. The person, a young woman who looks to be in her early 20s, simply nods in agreement. "It is good that your objective was met," she replies, with no hint of irony. She took your statement at face value. Your sarcasm didn't just fall flat. It never existed at all. The experience is profoundly deflating. Humor, however, is a fundamental human need, a pressure valve for the soul. It will not simply vanish. It will mutate. You begin to see the new forms emerging. Physical comedy, for one, is experiencing a renaissance. Old silent films, once a niche interest, are being broadcast constantly. Pratfalls, slapstick, a person slipping on a banana peel, these require no linguistic trickery. They are based on the universal, undeniable comedy of unexpected physical failure. It's a simple humor, but it's honest. A more complex form of humor is also taking shape, one born from the language's own logical purity. It's a humor of intellectual discovery. A new kind of joke is starting to circulate, passed around on message boards. It follows a rigid format. One of them goes like this. Premise: a man wishes to cool his house. He observes that his refrigeration unit makes the inside cold. Logical application: he opens the door of the refrigeration unit. Stated goal: to cool the entire house. Inquiry: what is the flaw in the man's logic? The punchline isn't a punchline at all. It's the explanation of the second law of thermodynamics. The laughter, a quiet intellectual chuckle, comes from recognizing and solving the logical incongruity. It's comedy for computers. Most psychologists agree with some version of the incongruity theory of humor, that we laugh at the unexpected collision of a concept and a reality. The nature of that incongruity has just shifted. It's no longer the delightful collision of two meanings in one word, but the clean, academic collision of a flawed premise with a logical truth. Philosophers still argue whether laughter is primarily a physiological response to surprise or a complex social signal used to build bonds and indicate safety. Here, it seems to be devolving into the former. It's the satisfaction of a puzzle solved, not the warmth of a shared moment of absurdity. What of the darker forms of humor? You think of gallows humor, the morbid jokes told by surgeons or soldiers to cope with the grim reality of their work. That, too, seems to have evaporated. It relied on a cynical, ironic detachment that the new language simply cannot support. When you read news reports about accidents or disasters, they are just that, reports. Stark, factual, and devoid of the human tendency to find a sliver of absurdity in the darkness. The pressure valve is gone. The grimness is just grim. You miss the old ways. You miss the gentle teasing that was a sign of affection, the self-deprecating joke that showed humility, the sharp-witted comeback that showed intelligence. These were all tools for navigating the complexities of human relationships. Now the tools are gone. Compliments are direct statements of fact. Criticisms are blunt assessments of inefficiency. Flirting, you imagine, must be a terrifyingly direct process of stating one's reproductive and companionship interests. The new humor is sterile. It does not bind people together in the same way. Sharing a laugh over a pun created an instant, if fleeting, connection based on a shared understanding of language's silliness. Solving a logic puzzle together creates a sense of mutual intellectual achievement, but it lacks the warmth, the messiness, the humanity. The children in the park are learning to laugh at flawed logic. They will never know the joy of laughing at a ridiculous word. And in that difference, a whole world of social texture is lost. Laughter is no longer the best medicine. It's just another form of data analysis. As you ponder this new, unfunny comedy, you start to question the very premise of this new world. The supposed goal of a single language was always unity, but if you strip away culture, memory, and now even humor, what is the quality of that unity? Are you truly closer to the people around you? Stay with me now. Let's move past the jokes and ask the big question. Let's look at the illusion of peace that this new world was supposed to create. The new, sterile humor was a symptom of a much deeper question, one that has been nagging at you since the first day of the hush. The entire philosophical justification for a universal language, a dream as old as the Tower of Babel, was the promise of unity, the end of conflict born from misunderstanding, the dawn of a new era of global peace. You look around your world, now weeks into the great linguistic shift, and you have to ask the question, did it work? On the surface, there are signs of staggering success. You watch a news broadcast from a global diplomatic summit. In the old world, these events were ponderous, multi-day affairs, slowed by the immense machinery of translation and the careful, deliberate crafting of statements in a dozen languages to avoid the slightest misinterpretation. Now, the leaders of the world sit at a single round table, no interpreters in sight, no headphones needed. They speak, they understand. An agreement on global shipping routes that should have taken a week of painful negotiation is concluded in 3 hours. The newscaster reports this with a sense of awe, a new age of efficiency. The anchor states in the flat, universal tongue. Humanity's goals can now be achieved without the friction of misunderstanding. But you look closer. You watch the recording of the leaders' faces. Their efficiency is chilling. There are no friendly side chats, no jokes to break the tension, no moments of shared, confused humanity. Their interactions are transactions. And later that week, you see the flip side. A different summit, this one to address a border dispute over a resource-rich river, collapses in less than an hour. The old excuses are gone. No one can claim their words were lost in translation or that a cultural misunderstanding occurred. The new language laid the positions bare with brutal clarity. Nation A wants the water. Nation B wants the water. Their interests are in direct, fundamental conflict. There is no linguistic fog to hide behind, no diplomatic ambiguity to allow for a face-saving compromise. The perfect clarity has not led to peace. It has led to a faster, more honest, and more intractable declaration of conflict. This is the unity paradox. You have removed the friction of misunderstanding, but you have also removed the shock absorbers. The School of International Relations, known as constructivism, argues that a nation's identity and interests are not fixed, but are shaped by shared norms, interactions, and crucially, language. This new language is so sterile it doesn't build shared norms. It just reveals raw, pre-existing interests. The world hasn't become a global community. It has become a global arena of perfectly rational, competing actors. Political scientists still argue whether democracies are inherently less likely to wage war on one another, a concept known as the democratic peace theory. But what you're seeing suggests that even if all parties are perfectly rational and communicative, peace is not guaranteed if their core objectives are mutually exclusive. You feel this on a personal level. You have an argument with a friend over a small debt. In the old days, it would have been a dance of hints and gentle reminders. You could have softened the request. Now, you can only state the fact. You have not returned the money unit I loaned you on the specified date. Your friend can't claim they forgot or misunderstood. They can only reply, I do not have the money unit available at this time. The exchange is clear, efficient, and utterly destructive to the friendship. The argument doesn't get resolved, it just gets confirmed. The old French phrase, l'esprit de l'escalier, staircase wit, described that feeling of thinking of the perfect, witty retort hours after an argument. That feeling is gone now. There's no wit to be missed, only the blunt trauma of the actual exchange. And in the absence of the old tribes, the ones built on nation, language, and culture, humanity, in its relentless need to form groups and identify an other, is finding new, bizarre ways to divide itself. The great schism of your time is not between East and West or North and South. It is between the analogs and the logicals. The analogs are the rebels you met in the basement, the ones who mourn the past and seek to preserve its inefficient beauty. They are viewed by the mainstream as sentimental, backwards, and even unstable. The logicals are those who have fully embraced the new world, who see the past as a messy beta test and the present as a clean, finished product. They see the analogs as a threat to the new unity. But the divisions go deeper and become almost comical. With the big reasons to dislike each other gone, people are latching onto the small ones. You see heated online debates, no longer about politics, but about methodology. A disagreement over the correct way to load a dishwasher can escalate into a torrent of accusations about flawed process and inefficient thinking. You hear a shouting match on the street that, when you listen closely, is about whether it is more logical to sort groceries on the conveyor belt by category or by temperature. These are the new culture wars. They are wars of pure, unadulterated pedantry. Your upstairs neighbor, whom you once disliked for playing loud music, you now despise for his suboptimal method of parallel parking. The human capacity for judgment has not been diminished. It has simply been refocused on the mundane. The dream of unity was a beautiful one, but it was based on the flawed premise that our differences were the problem. You now suspect that our differences, our messy languages, our illogical cultures, our strange senses of humor, they were the whole point. They were the source of art, of innovation, of resilience. And they were the buffers that kept our perfectly rational, self-interested impulses from leading us directly and efficiently into conflict. You have perfect understanding now, but you have never felt more divided. If the world is splintering into new tribes, how long can even the language itself remain truly unified? When you're ready, I will tell you about the new accents you're starting to hear, the new words sprouting like weeds in the cracks of the perfect concrete sidewalk. The unity of the new world is a paradox, a fragile veneer of perfect communication stretched thin over humanity's inexhaustible need to form tribes. This realization leads you to the one place where global consciousness is most raw and visible, the internet. You sit down at your laptop, the same one you used to witness the economic quake, and you plunge into the digital realm. If the world is truly unified, it will be most apparent here. If it is cracking, the fissures will be deepest here. At first glance, the digital world is a monument to the new order. It is a vast, terrifying digital echo chamber. You scroll through major social media platforms, news aggregators, and video sharing sites. The content flows in from every corner of the former globe, but it all speaks with the same voice. A news headline from a Japanese outlet reads identically to one from an Argentinian source. The comments on a viral video, whether posted from Cairo or Chicago, are indistinguishable in their tone and structure. The flattened, logical language has created a smooth, seamless, and utterly monotonous global conversation. The web, once a chaotic bazaar of 1,000 tongues and cultures, has become a single, sterile superhighway. There are no foreign language corners of the internet to explore anymore. It's all one big, sanitized room. But then you look closer. You dive deeper, past the mainstream sites, and into the digital back alleys, the niche forums, the dedicated servers for gamers, the encrypted chat groups of the analog rebels. And here, in the cracks of the concrete, you see the weeds, life. Language is not just a tool for communication, it is a tool for identity. And a single, universal, logical language is a terrible tool for expressing individuality. So humanity, especially its younger members, is breaking it on purpose. You enter a forum dedicated to a popular online game. The discussion is almost incomprehensible. It is written in the new language, but it is riddled with acronyms you've never seen, words used in ways that defy their literal meaning. A common phrase, the planned strategy was not successful, has been shortened to an acronym, TPSNS. A player who makes a mistake is not inefficient. They are a TPSNS. The acronym has become a noun, an insult. It's slang. It's the first stirring of a new dialect. It's a known linguistic fact that all living languages evolve. They develop slang, jargon, and dialects as social groups seek to define themselves and create shortcuts for communication. The new language was designed to be static, a finished product, but it was forced upon a species that refuses to be finished. You are witnessing this natural linguistic process reasserting itself in defiance of its programming. You find a music forum where fans are discussing the old, pre-Hush songs. They are using the word optimal not with its literal meaning of best or most favorable, but as a term of sarcasm. A comment under a particularly bad translation of a classic rock song reads, "The lyrical adaptation is optimal. To an outsider, it's a compliment. To the in-group, it's a savage criticism, a shared joke that bonds them together. They have taken a sterile word and given it a new, ironic soul. It is a small act of rebellion, but a profound one. This is the birth of modern argots, or cants, secret languages designed to exclude outsiders. In the old world, these were used by thieves or hidden subcultures. Now, in a world of total linguistic transparency, these new cants are being developed in plain sight. You can see the words, but you don't have the social key to unlock their true meaning. The internet is no longer a single room. It's a vast hall of invisible, soundproof booths. Each booth is a tribe, whispering in its own evolving tongue. Sociologists still argue whether online communities create meaningful social bonds or simply foster tribalism and shallow, parasocial relationships. You are watching both happen simultaneously. The shared slang of a gaming community is creating genuine bonds between players on opposite sides of the planet, but it is also making their communication utterly opaque to anyone outside their circle, deepening the divisions between them and other groups who are developing their own different slang. You, a digital tourist, feel like an anthropologist discovering a dozen new uncontacted tribes. You stumble into a chat for the logicals, the New World's evangelists, and find they have developed a hyper-efficient jargon of their own, stripping the already simple language down to its barest bones, a flurry of abbreviations and logical operators that resembles computer code more than speech. Then you find an analog group, and they are doing the opposite, deliberately using long, archaic phrasings and reintroducing inefficient old words they've salvaged, their text a slow, deliberate protest against the new speed. The great linguistic unification has failed, or rather, it succeeded so perfectly that it created a vacuum of identity, of poetry, of belonging. And into that vacuum, the irrepressible human spirit has rushed, creating 1,000 new, tiny, fractured languages. The dream of a single global conversation has resulted in 1,000,000 private ones. The echo chamber has shattered into a kaleidoscope of whispers, and you suspect this is only the beginning. These digital dialects will eventually bleed into the real world, and the new single language will crack and splinter into a family of new, mutually unintelligible tongues. The Tower of Babel is being rebuilt, tweet by tweet, comment by comment. This creative destruction of the language might be a hopeful sign for human identity, but what does it mean for the things that rely on absolute precision? What happens to science when the very language it uses is being deliberately broken for social expression? Hold that thought. As you log off, the screen going dark, consider the scientists, consider the engineers. We will soon see how their world of perfect data is coping with the beautiful, chaotic static of a reborn human tongue. The revelation of the internet's chaotic linguistic rebirth leaves you with a deep sense of irony. Humanity had broken the machine in an attempt to feel human again. This act of creative rebellion felt hopeful, a testament to the stubborn spirit of identity. But as you lie in bed that night, scrolling through your feed one last time, you stumble upon a different side of the story. You find an article from a prominent science journal, and the tone is not one of hope, but of quiet, mounting despair. The creative destruction of the new language, it turns out, is having catastrophic consequences for the one field that requires absolute, unwavering clarity: science. For a few brief, shining moments after the hush, it had seemed like a utopia for researchers. All the world's scientific papers from every institution were instantly perfectly readable. A geneticist in Korea could seamlessly build upon the work of a biochemist in Nigeria. The language barrier, a centuries-old impediment to collaboration, had been vaporized. It was supposed to be the dawn of a golden age of discovery, a time of unprecedented global cooperation. The dream lasted about a month. So the problem, you learn from the article, is one of resolution. The new language, designed for what its mysterious architects must have deemed efficiency, is a low-resolution tool. It is good enough for ordering coffee or discussing the weather, but it is a clumsy, inadequate instrument for the fine-tooled work of scientific description. You read a quote from a leading botanist. "I have discovered 3 new species of orchid in the last month," she states. "I think. The problem is, I cannot be certain they are new species, because our language lacks the specific vocabulary to describe what makes them unique. We have one word for lance-shaped leaf and one for ovate leaf. The leaves I am studying are somewhere in between. They are oblanceolate. Or they were. The word is gone. How can I classify what I can no longer precisely describe?" The entire edifice of Western science, you recall, was built upon the rich, ancient scaffolding of Greek and Latin. These were not just languages, they were conceptual toolkits. Their prefixes, suffixes, and roots allowed for the creations of a vast, interconnected, and logical system of terminology. The word biology itself, bios for life, logia for study, tells you its meaning. This etymological DNA has been wiped. The new words for scientific concepts are arbitrary, with no shared history, making the lexicon incredibly difficult to learn and navigate. The intuitive map is gone, replaced by a list of random destinations. The stagnation is even more profound in the abstract sciences. You find a blog post by a despairing theoretical physicist. "We don't just communicate in data," he writes. "We communicate in ideas, in thought experiments, in metaphor. When Einstein imagined riding on a beam of light, he was using a poetic, metaphorical leap to unlock a physical truth. This language resists metaphor. It is aggressively literal. We can describe what is, but we are losing the linguistic tools to imagine what could be." You think of the peculiar genius of the German language for creating massive compound nouns, those conceptual Lego bricks that could build a whole philosophical idea into a single, elegant word. That power of creation is gone, replaced by a system of clumsy, descriptive phrases. Philosophers of science still argue whether progress is a slow, steady accumulation of facts, or if, as Thomas Kuhn proposed, it happens in revolutionary paradigm shifts, moments when a new idea so completely upends the old worldview that the very language of science has to change. You realize with a chill that the new language is perfectly suited for the first process. It is a language of accumulation, of data entry, but it is fundamentally hostile to the second. It is a language that resists revolution. It calcifies the existing paradigm by making it impossible to formulate the words for a new one. And into this crisis of precision comes the chaotic contamination of the new slang. The problem is no longer just that the language is too simple, it's that it's now becoming unstable. A biologist from the article complains, "I was co-authoring a paper on cellular decay, and my colleague from another continent used the term sysfail, a piece of gamer slang derived from system failure, to describe the process. He meant it as a technical shortcut, but to half the journal's readership, that word is a joke, a meme. It has no place in a serious paper. The single clear language has become a minefield of shifting meanings. Scientists are now forced to add glossaries to the beginning of their papers, defining their terms to distinguish them from the slang of the weak. They have recreated the very problem of translation the system was meant to solve. The search for new medicines, the mapping of the cosmos, the understanding of the human mind, it's all slowing down. The global brain of science is still running, but it's working with a corrupted, low-resolution operating system. It's drowning in perfectly shared, imprecise data. You close the article, a deep sense of unease settling over you. You had celebrated the rebels in the basement and the slang makers on the internet for keeping the human spirit alive. But you now see the cost of that beautiful, messy rebellion. In saving our identity, we may be sacrificing our future. The words have failed us. The single perfect word failed us by its simplicity, and our own broken, beautiful words are failing us by their chaos. So if language is becoming either too sterile or too unstable, where else can we turn for meaning? Perhaps you think to the one language that was never lost. Are you ready to be quiet for a moment? Let's rediscover the things that are said when no one is speaking at all. The failure of words hangs heavy in the air. Science is stagnating, and the internet, once a symbol of connection, has become a fractured landscape of competing slang. The new language is a tool too simple for precision, and the emerging dialects are too chaotic for clarity. Communication, the very foundation of society, seems to be broken. In your quiet despair, you remember the closing thought from the science article. We are losing the tools to describe our world, and it occurs to you that perhaps you've all been focusing on the wrong tool. The next day, you decide to conduct an experiment. You will spend the entire day trying to understand the world without listening to a single word. You go to a central train station, a great river of humanity flowing in all directions. You find a seat on a bench, put in noise-canceling earbuds without any music playing, and you just watch. At first, it's just a blur of motion, but slowly, as your brain gives up trying to hear and devotes its full power to seeing, the world comes into focus with a startling, newfound clarity. You are no longer just seeing people, you are reading them. You watch a couple saying goodbye. The words are silent to you, but their story is perfectly clear. The way his shoulders slump as he turns away. The way she hugs her arms to her chest, a classic self-soothing gesture. The forced, tight-lipped smile that doesn't reach her eyes. The slight, almost imperceptible shake of her head after he has walked away. Their bodies are telling a story of reluctance and sadness that the efficient, sterile words of the new language could never convey. You realize you've seen more truth in those 30 seconds of silence than in any conversation you've overheard in weeks. This is the language that was never lost, the speech of the body. You start to notice the incredible nuance you were blind to before. You see the subtle dance of dominance and submission in a business meeting, told through who leans in and who leans back. You see the flirtatious energy between two strangers, a conversation happening entirely through sidelong glances and mirrored postures. You see the sharp, almost invisible flash of contempt on a woman's face as she passes a garish advertisement, a micro-expression of disgust that is gone in an instant but tells you everything about her true feelings. You remember reading about the work of psychologist Paul Ekman, who famously demonstrated that there are at least 7 facial expressions of emotion: joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, contempt, and disgust that are universal to all human beings, regardless of their culture. In the old world, that was a fascinating academic fact. In this new one, it is the bedrock of all genuine communication. With the emotional vocabulary of spoken language so impoverished, the face has become the last refuge of emotional truth. People are, out of necessity, becoming experts at reading it. You even find yourself noticing things you once would have considered absurdly specific, like pupil dilation. You watch a vendor showing a customer a piece of jewelry. As the customer examines a particular necklace, you see the pupils of her eyes widen ever so slightly. It's an involuntary signal of interest and desire, a tiny honest tell in the poker game of negotiation. This fringe science of pupillometry is now just observation. You are seeing the subconscious made visible. Anthropologists still argue whether our more complex gestures are innate or culturally learned. But from your vantage point, it seems a new global grammar of gesture is being forged in real time. Deprived of their unique cultural gestures, people are defaulting to a more fundamental and perhaps more primal set of signals. A shared vocabulary of shrugs, nods, and hand movements is emerging, a physical pidgin language to supplement the inadequate spoken one. Later that day, you meet your friend, the one with whom you had the awkward, transactional argument about the loan. You decide to put your experiment into practice as she talks, explaining the situation in the same blunt, literal words as before. You focus not on what she says, but on what she does. You see the tension in her jaw, the way she avoids your gaze, the hand that repeatedly touches her neck in a gesture of anxiety. And for the first time, you don't hear a debtor making an excuse. You see a person who is genuinely ashamed and distressed. Without thinking, you reach out and place a hand on her arm. She stops talking. You say nothing. You just give a small, empathetic nod. Her shoulders relax. Her eyes finally meet yours, and in them, you see a flicker of gratitude. In that moment of shared silence, more is communicated and healed than in any of the perfectly clear, perfectly useless conversations you've had. You have connected. You start applying this everywhere. You become a student of the human animal. The world, which had seemed to be fading into a gray, monotonous hum, bursts back into high-resolution color. Every twitch, every glance, every shift in posture is a word, a sentence, a paragraph. It's exhausting, but it's also exhilarating. It feels like you've discovered a secret, honest layer of reality hiding just beneath the surface. You find a strange new humor in it, too. You see a politician delivering a speech with perfect, confident posture, while his feet are nervously tapping out a frantic rhythm of pure panic under the podium. It's the most honest political statement you've seen in ages. Language has failed, but communication has not. It has simply changed channels. It has gone back to its source, to the body, to the face, to the silent, irrefutable truth of our physical selves. And as you lay in bed that night, your mind buzzing with the day's observations, you wonder where the last frontier of language lies. If our waking minds are trapped, and our bodies are now speaking for us, what happens when we are unconscious? What language do we speak in our dreams? Let your own body relax now. Let your breathing slow. We are about to go to the one place the new language has not yet colonized, We are going to sleep. You drift off to sleep, your mind still cataloging the day's silent conversations, the language of shoulders, eyes, and hands. Your body is heavy, sinking into the mattress, and the relentless, logical voice of the new language finally begins to fade, replaced by the low hum of your own inner quiet. You feel yourself slipping through the layers of consciousness, past the scattered thoughts of the day, past the strange, jumbled phrases of hypnagogic speech that bubble up from the depths. And then, you are no longer falling. You are standing. You are dreaming. You are in a library. Not a sterile modern one, but an old, impossible library with towering shelves that curve into the sky, constructed from books themselves. The air smells richly of old paper, leather, and dust, and it is not silent. There is a sound you have not truly heard in what feels like a lifetime. It is the gentle, chaotic, beautiful murmur of 1,000 different voices speaking 1,000 different languages. Your language is there, you hear it, a clear, melodic thread in the vast tapestry of sound. It is not a ghost, it is real. A figure approaches you from between the shelves. It is your grandmother. She looks exactly as you remember her face kind, her eyes full of a wisdom the new language could never articulate. She smiles and she speaks to you. She speaks in the tongue of your childhood, the language you thought was gone forever. She calls you by a nickname, a silly, secret name that only she ever used. And as the sound of it hits your ears, a dam breaks inside you. A wave of emotion so profound, so overwhelming, it brings you to your knees. It is the feeling of coming home. You open your mouth to reply, and the words flow out, effortlessly, perfectly. The accent is right, the cadence is right, the vocabulary is rich and full and alive. You are not struggling. You are not searching for deleted files. You are speaking. You are yourself again. You talk for what feels like hours, the conversation flowing from silly childhood memories to deep, complex feelings. The words have flavor, they have color, they have weight. You tell a joke, a real one with a pun, and she laughs, a real, genuine laugh that fills the impossible library. This is the last bastion, the one place the great linguistic reboot could not reach. Neuroscientists still argue whether dreams are just the meaningless static of random neural firings or a sophisticated theater for emotional regulation and problem solving. But for you, in this moment, the answer is blindingly clear. Dreams are the sanctuary. They are the mind's secret act of rebellion, the nightly work of its own private team of memory keepers. Research in the old world showed that REM sleep was crucial for consolidating memories, and now you understand. Your sleeping brain is not letting go. It is fighting. It is consolidating the memory of your very soul. You walk with her through the library, and you see that every book is a life, and every page is a memory, written in its original, unique language. Nothing has been translated, and nothing has been lost. It is all here, perfectly preserved in the vast, shared archive of the human subconscious. You realize the languages were never truly erased, only firewalled from the waking mind. Sleep is the administrator password. Sleep is the key. You even find a surreal humor here. In a quiet corner of the library, you see your first pet, a golden retriever, sitting at a desk, wearing reading glasses and poring over a philosophical text. He looks up at you and offers a piece of surprisingly insightful advice, about your waking life, speaking to you in the same perfect mother tongue. The absurdity of the image and the profundity of the feeling of being understood create a moment of pure, joyful dream logic. It is more real than any logical conversation you've had since the hush, but you know it cannot last. A soft bell begins to chime in the distance, and the warm light of the library begins to pale. It is the sound of your morning alarm, calling you back across the void. Your grandmother hugs you, a feeling of pure, unconditional love. It is all still here, she whispers. Never forget where to find it. The murmur of 1,000 languages begins to fade. The scent of old paper recedes. The vibrant color of the dream world gives way to the gray light of dawn, filtering through your window. You wake up. The silence of your room feels different this morning. It is not the empty, sterile silence of before. It is a peaceful silence, filled with the lingering echo of 1,000 resurrected voices. The words are gone again, inaccessible, but the memory of them, the feeling of their warmth and their weight remains. You carry a secret now, a treasure that can be revisited every single night. You have found the last pocket of true diversity, and it is inside you. And so our journey comes to a close. The world outside your window may still be struggling in its new uniform voice, but here, in the quiet sanctuary of your room, you are safe. The story is over, its questions and its wonders left to settle like soft dust in the corners of your mind. Let the imagery of the tale begin to fade, like the final moments of a dream you wish you could hold on to. Release the tension of the narrative, the struggle of the memory keepers, the coldness of the new logic. They are just echoes now, phantoms in a story that has been told. You are here, you are now. Your own mind is a vast and wonderful library, filled with its own unique language, its own poetry, its own private jokes and tender expressions. It is a language no one can ever take from you. It is the language of your own soul, rich and deep and beautifully complex. Rest now in that knowledge. Rest in the quiet comfort of your own being. Let the rhythm of your breathing be the only story you need to follow, a gentle, steady cadence leading you down into the deep, peaceful, and welcoming quiet of your own well-deserved sleep. There is nothing else to do, nothing else to think about, just the soft darkness, the gentle breath, and the comforting weight of your blanket. Just rest.